Beneath the blistering noon sun of Red Valley Station, a dusty crowd buzzed around the wooden platform, where a bruised and trembling young woman sat tied to a post like stray cattle. Her hair hung in matted waves across her face. Her lips cracked from dehydration, yet her eyes, sharp, defiant, glowing like embers, resisting a storm, burned with a fury stronger than any rope holding her. The auctioneer, a toothless brute with a voice like a rusted saw, hollered that she was a captured outlaw, a danger, a thief, a liar, a runaway criminal worth hanging at first sight, though everyone knew the men running this station auction often invented crimes to justify selling the vulnerable. The crowd laughed, some jeered, a few whispered prayers, but she didn't flinch. Her gaze remained fixed forward, stubbornly proud as she whispered beneath her breath, "I'd rather die." No one dared ask why. No one cared. But at the edge of the platform, leaning against a post with his hat shading half his face, stood a quiet cowboy named Elias Boone, broad-shouldered, rough from ranch labor, boots worn from miles crossed, and carrying a silence heavier than any saddlebag. He hadn't come to buy anything. He'd come for supplies. But something about the girl, something in the fire of those eyes, stopped him cold. The auctioneer laughed as no one bid the opening price of $20. Nobody wanted a dangerous girl with a refusal to live. So the auctioneer dropped the price again. $10, then $5. Still silence. A drunken ranch hand shouted that she wasn't worth a penny. Another said she'd stab the first man who freed her. But Elias watched her lift her chin, whispering again, "I'd rather die, not out of fear, but out of honor, as if death was better than whatever fate these wolves had planned." Elias stepped forward. The crowd parted. Dust swirled, and in a voice calm as a winter wind, he said, $3. Gasps erupted. $3. The auctioneer, eager for any coin at all, slammed his gavel down before anyone else could blink. "Sold!" Elias approached her quietly. She glared at him with such hatred he almost stepped back. "If you think I belong to you," she hissed, "I'll slit my own throat first." Elias removed his hat, knelt and cut her ropes with a steady hand. "Ma'am," he murmured, "I didn't buy you. I bought your freedom." But she jerked away, stumbling as her exhausted legs failed her. "I don't trust you. I don't trust any man here." Still, Elias didn't touch her again. He simply placed a canteen at her feet and stepped back. "Then trust the water," he said, "and trust yourself enough to survive one more day." She stared at him, confused, suspicious, breathing sharply as if the air itself betrayed her. "Why?" she demanded. His voice carried a weight, a sorrow, something unspoken. "Because," he said quietly, "someone once bought my freedom." Two. A long silence hung between them. But Elias saw her fingers twitch toward the water, her resolve cracking just slightly. Before she could speak, gunshots exploded from the ridge. 5 riders in black thundered down the hill, guns drawn, shouting, "She's ours!" The girl froze, terror flooding her eyes for the first time. The crowd scattered. The station erupted into chaos, and Elias Boone placed his hand on his revolver, stepping in front of her like a wall of flesh and steel. "Ma'am," he said, tilting his hat, "if you want to live, now's a good time to decide." Her breath trembled. She looked at him, really looked, and in that heartbeat, the fire returned to her eyes. "Fine," she whispered, "but if you betray me, I'll still die before I let them take me." Elias allowed himself a faint, solemn smile. "Fair enough." And as the riders charged closer, dust boiling behind them, the cowboy who spent $3 to save a stranger prepared to fight an entire gang with nothing but grit, honor, and a revolver that hadn't misfired once in 15 years. The girl stepped behind him, gripping his coat as the world exploded into gunfire. And destiny, cruel, wild, unstoppable, came roaring toward them on horseback. Bullets ripped through the wooden crates around the station as Elias returned fire with perfect, deadly precision. The girl ducked behind him, trembling, not from fear of death, but from the memories that the charging riders awakened. Memories she fought desperately to bury. Elias shot the lead horse's reins, causing the beast to rear, throwing its rider into the dirt. Another man fired at Elias, missing by inches. The cowboy didn't miss. The crowd fled inside the station building as the dust thickened, the air crackling with the smell of gunpowder. The girl, panting, finally reached for a fallen pistol, hands shaking as she aimed at a rider circling behind Elias. She hesitated, but only for a fraction of a second before squeezing the trigger, dropping the outlaw cleanly. Elias glanced back at her, surprised but impressed. "You shoot well," he said. She didn't answer. Her jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the remaining riders. In minutes, the chaos settled. 3 men lay dead. 2 crawled away, bleeding. The survivors retreated, swearing vengeance. Elias, breathing heavily, holstered his revolver and looked at the girl. She stood rigid, staring at the bodies, her lip trembling as if holding back years of pain. "They weren't after money," she whispered. "They were after me." Elias nodded. "I figured that out when they didn't try negotiating." She looked at him sharply. "Why aren't you asking who I am?" "What I did?" Elias shrugged. "You were tied to a post and they wanted you dead. That's enough for me to know something wrong happened." She sank to her knees, overwhelmed, whispering, "Those men? They killed my family, burned my ranch, blamed me for a crime they committed." Her voice broke. "And now they won't stop until I'm buried beside them." Elias knelt beside her. "You got a name?" She hesitated. "Aria? Aria Vale?" The name stirred something faint in Elias's memory, but he brushed it aside. "Well, Aria, you're coming with me. I know a place where those riders won't dare follow." She glared at him stubbornly. "I told you, I don't trust men who think they own things." Elias smirked. "Good thing I'm a man who's lost enough to understand. Ownership is an illusion." They traveled west toward the mountains, where Elias's small cabin hid beneath towering pines. As days passed, Aria slowly softened, just slightly. She watched him split wood with a strength that matched his gentleness when he cooked her breakfast. She watched him fix her torn dress with clumsy stitches. She watched him look away whenever she changed bandages, respecting every inch of her privacy. And in quiet moments, when the fire crackled in the hearth, she would catch him glancing at her, as if fighting a war inside himself. One evening, Aria finally spoke the truth. "Elias, those men took everything from me. My land, my name, my life." Elias set down his tin cup. "Then we take it back." Her eyes widened. "You'd help me? After everything?" He nodded. "Nobody deserves to live hunted." "If I don't help you, then who will?" Tears welled in her eyes for the first time. "You're the first good man I've met in years." He offered a shy smile. "I'd like to keep it that way." Word spread quickly that the $3 girl had escaped. The gang returned, larger this time, determined to reclaim her. Elias and Aria prepared for the showdown. He taught her to shoot with precision. She taught him the gang's patterns and weaknesses. Together, they became a force stronger than either expected. On the final night, when the gang surrounded the cabin, torches blazing, Aria stood beside Elias on the porch, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes burning with the fire of someone who had chosen life after all. The gang leader shouted, "Eris Vale is property of my ranch." Aria stepped forward, lifting her chin. "I belong to no one." Elias drew his revolver. The battle was fierce, guns roaring, flames dancing, horses screaming as chaos swallowed the valley. Aria fought like a woman reborn, every shot a cry of vengeance. Elias moved like a shadow, protecting her without smothering her. When the dust settled, the gang lay defeated. Aria collapsed to her knees, shaking alive. Elias knelt beside her. "It's over," he whispered. She turned to him, tears streaking through soot and blood. "When you paid $3, I wished for death." Elias brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And now?" She swallowed. "Now? I'm glad you didn't let me die." He smiled, soft and warm. "Then live, Aria. Live free." She leaned her forehead against his. "If I survive this," she whispered, "I want to rebuild my life. And maybe I'd like you in it." Elias froze, stunned. Then he nodded. And with the valley quiet beneath the rising dawn, the girl who once said she'd rather die finally chose to live because a cowboy with nothing left to lose spent $3 to save a stranger's life.